a pleasure to introduce Dr. Ayub Plamer. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خيرا, Dr. Mamnoon, and to all of those here at the Rayyan Center. I visited, alhamdulillah, the Rayyan Center when I was in Michigan. I think it was about 3-4 months ago, and I was really impressed by, mashallah, the what the center has to offer the Muslim community, mashallah. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah and tawfiq and success in your efforts, and makes it a center of Islam in Southeast Michigan. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. I'd like to begin with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashraf al-khalqi Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I want to just quickly explain what the topic is of this short talk, which is on the benefits of fasting. And I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can see my my presentation here. So I chose this book called Maqasid as-Sawm as a reference work for this talk. And it's the Shar'i aims of fasting. And the reason that I chose it was because of who its author is. His name is Shaykh al-Islam al-Izz ibn Abd salam, and he lived during the pivotal time of the Mongol invasions. And so I thought it was fitting that we would talk about fasting based on a work by someone who lived through very challenging and turbulent times, but met them with tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and met those times with hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we can see what the result of that was, the sincerity of Al-Izz ibn Abd salam. He was someone who throughout his life exemplified sincerity to Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to upholding Islam. It was him who was crucial in giving nasiha or guidance to the Mamluk Sultan Qutuz when the Mongol Emperor Hulagu sent an emissary to Egypt, demanding that the Muslims in Egypt surrender. And Al-Izz ibn Abd salam counseled Al-Qutuz to resist and to engage the Mongols directly. And the Mamluks left Egypt and went into Palestine and met the Mongols at Ain Jalut in 1260 and decisively defeated them. In a sense, and one could say, as some historians have said, in some ways, saving one of the last major centers of Islamic civilization, i.e. Cairo. And so Al-Izz ibn Abd salam, it wasn't just this historical event that he was played a role in. He also played a role in directly engaging in repelling the Crusaders who landed off of the coast of Egypt to attack Cairo. And so he throughout his life he exemplified not only knowledge but also a sincerity to the Sharia. And so that's why I just wanted to use this book in order to discuss some of the points related to the Shari'i aims of fasting. He doesn't present anything particularly new to the discussion because many of us know what this, we've heard many of these things before. However, the sincerity of it, I think, is what's key, and that's what we need to think about for ourselves. And I wanted to talk about this topic because I wanted to counsel myself first and foremost, and to motivate myself to fast more outside of Ramadan in the following year. And I hope that this is a means by which all of us can take to think about that, since we're now in the last 10 days and we're nearing the end of this holy month. That again, every year that that Ramadan, that we are honored by Ramadan, that we're alive to witness it, that it is a means of moving us to improve throughout the year that follows. And part of that, and a very important part of that is increasing in our own fasting, in the fasting that is non-obligatory, fasting that is a sign of sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he talks, he has 10 chapters in this book, but I'm focusing on the third chapter about fada'il. And Al-Izz ibn Abd al-Salam, he talks about raising one's degree, that fasting raises one's degree, raf'u darajat. And he cites the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إذا جاء رمضان فتحت أبواب الجنة وغلقت أبواب النار وصفدت الشياطين. So when Ramadan begins, or when it comes, the doors of paradise are opened and the doors of the hellfire are closed and the devils are shackled. And all of us, I think, can appreciate how when Ramadan comes, things that we never thought we could accomplish in terms of our ibadah, in terms of our willingness and eagerness to engage in acts of worship, somehow miraculously gets turned into high gear. And it's not just the social aspect of it. Many of us are now in quarantine, and yet we still feel it, because there's a special barakah that is part of that accompanies this month. And anyone who fasts regularly every Ramadan begins to sense that and begins to understand it. And he also cites the hadith, كل عمل ابن آدم يضاعف الحسنة وعشر أمثالها إلى 700 ضعف. قال الله تعالى إلا الصوم فإنه لي وأنا أجزي به. يدع شهوته وطعامه من أجلي. And this is one of the most powerful of the ahadith. And there are ahadith that are considered to be axial, like for example in the 40 hadith, Imam al-Nawawi. But there are some hadith, amongst them, of course, the hadith Qudsi, but there are some ahadith that are simply amazing in how they make us appreciate and think about the deen in a different way. And I think this is one of them. Every deed of the son of Adam is multiplied, the good deed being worth 10 of its like up to 700 times. Allah Most High, God Most High says, except for fasting, because it is for me, and I recompense it. He leaves his desire for his food for my sake. And so, we understand that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us rewards that we can expect and that we can, in a sense, quantify. But the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond quantification. And so there are acts of obedience that are unquantified. And fasting is one of those. It is the primary one. And so a person who leaves food and drink, or leaves what he or she desires for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is very important, is the niyyah, the intention, that the intention be sincere, that a person makes the intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in following his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when a person does that, that they can expect, and they should expect and should look forward to a reward which is unquantified, that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly himself. All things are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but this is a reward that that none of us will be able to know its qadr, or its amount. He also mentions some of the fada'il are takfir al-khati'at, so forgiving of sins. This month is a time in which the sins of the previous year are forgiven. Ramadan ila Ramadan mukaffirat ma baynahunna idha ijtanabta al-kaba'ir. So this is he cites this hadith of the Prophet from Ramadan to Ramadan, or one Ramadan to another, is an expiation for what occurs between them, as long as one refrains from enormities. And so the enormities are or the kaba'ir, or those things that that people commit, which are offenses, grave offenses. Those have to be a special tawbah from to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a special turning and asking of forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then whatever harm any harm that was inflicted should be then also made up for. So, but it forgives the sins, and it's a cleansing. So the fasting is a cleansing for the body, but it's more importantly a cleansing of the heart. And he also cites this hadith, "Man sama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbihi." And so whoever fasts Ramadan believing in and expecting its reward will be forgiven of whatever sin came before. Again, these are the sagha'ir, or those which are not the enormities, but the lesser sins. But this point of iman and wahtisab is very important, because again it returns to this idea of sincerity, that the person seeks and hopes for and expects the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give, and that this is part of the sincerity, and this is part of that which pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we believe in this reward, we believe in it, and we expect that reward, and we hope for it, when that's with the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the fasting is connected to the meeting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. on the day of judgment and in the next life. And so that's why there's this aspect of sincerity, because a person doesn't see or will not see all of the reward or the benefits from the fasting in this life, but rather it's in the next life, in the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that there's a happiness. There are two happinesses, as the Prophet said, for the fasting person, when the person breaks their fast and when they meet their Lord. So that is part of sincerity, because we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe that when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will receive that reward that He has promised us. And the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is over the promise of all others. And so we put our trust in Him. He also mentions some other benefits, for example, like kasr shahawat, which is the breaking of the lower desires. And there are numerous ahadith about the benefits of fasting in putting a tamp on the desires. It gives one a hold over one's desires, one's lower desires. And so the fasting is a means of controlling that aspect of us which seeks to transgress. It's also, he mentions takthir al-sadaqat, of increasing in giving. And we all do that. Many of us give our zakat in this month. And some of us give it on the 27th, the 27th night. And we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply the reward of that giving in this month. And that's one of the reasons that many Muslims do that. And it's part of the Muslims' intelligence, right? That they understand the how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made available the many avenues to blessings. And so many of us will give our zakat and our sadaqah. And you know, some people talk about like donor fatigue and things like that. You know, we shouldn't listen to those types of, or that type of discourse, right? Because anything that we give is going to be increased by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, if you think about it, anyone looks at like when they give, just then they should see how much their wealth has increased or decreased after a year. Most of us, our wealth has increased after a year, even after we've given, right? And so we need to move out of this paradigm of thinking about things like, you know, donor fatigue. If a person is able to give, they should give, right? And if they're not able to give, then they should make dua, right? But a person should not feel a certain type of resentment or grudge when a person comes and asks for funds for something that's a good cause. And so this is an opportunity. Every time a person comes to us seeking help, you know, the Prophet ﷺ never turned down the person who asked. And so what you know, those I know some brothers who, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just $10, $15, whatever, if someone comes and asks, they always give something, right? And so it's good to get into that mode. And fasting helps us to open our hearts to giving. And so that's the immense blessings of it. Making abundant opportunities for worship, tawfir al-ta'at, is another aspect that he mentions. And we see this in Ramadan, you know, people giving sadaqah by day and fasting in the day, and praying their tarawih at night, and staying up and reading the entire Quran, you know, completing a khatam of the Quran, some completing multiple khatams of the Quran. You know, a person all of a sudden, all of these opportunities for ibadah and ta'ah are opened. And that's an ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And we should all reflect on that, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us this window into what we can achieve. That what we think we can achieve, what we can achieve, and what we think we can achieve, there's a gap there. And so, this is part of the tarbiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is that, when a person teaches, when they teach in a classroom, what they're essentially doing is they're scaffolding, right? They are giving the student, they're taking the student up to a place where they can experience something that they couldn't experience on their own, or that they could come to an understanding that they couldn't come to an understanding on their own. And once they have that opening, then they have something to a goal to shoot for, right? They know where they can go, right? And that's in and of itself is a huge blessing. And in a sense, Ramadan is like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the ability to rise to a higher level. And then when Ramadan finishes and we don't have those training wheels anymore, then now, but we experienced it, we tasted it, we felt it, right? And that's what now we know. I can do this, right? I can do this with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that the person then makes the intention and they attempt to further their or increase in their ibadah. And then thankfulness and knowing what has been hidden from one, shukr alim al khafiyat. It's not until we do without something that we begin to appreciate it. And so this is another aspect that Al-Izz ibn Abd as-Salam mentions, is that when we put off food, then we then begin to appreciate it, right? We appreciate the blessings when they're gone. And so that's another aspect. Being restrained from busying oneself with disobedience and transgression, inzijar an khawatir al-ma'asi wal-mukhalafat. Here, Al-Izz ibn Abd as-Salam is talking about, that when a person is not fasting, is satiated, then their mind is busied with many different things, right? They're busy with work, and they're busy with things that they're thinking about in the dunya, yeah. So, but when a person is fasting, their focus, they become busied with the absence of something that they're used to, and then they're thinking about that fast breaking. They're thinking about the food that they're going to eat. They're thinking, obviously, they should be thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a means towards that. But that person, it's better for that person to have this type of that their mind should be busied with this rather than that, right? I would dunya. And so the fasting is a great mithal for life, and how we should tread this path of life, right? Because, and this is one of the things I wanted to mention, which is coming next, which is that when a person breaks their fast, it's like when a person lives their life, that at the last moment of their life, they say the shahada, if they're a believer and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them tawfiq to do that. That their life, in a sense, is encapsulated in that moment, right? And in a sense, the breaking of the fast is encapsulates the whole day of fasting, right? And that one restrains oneself and then reaps the benefits and the rewards after that, right? And so the fasting is a great training and a great mithal for how we should live our lives, i.e. lives of restraint, right? Lives of contemplation, lives of of hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of that meeting point, right? And that putting ourselves in that frame of mind. And so there's an amazing hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the one who eats with thankfulness is like the one who fasts with patience. And many people they've thought about this in terms of it kind of throws one a little bit for a loop, because fasting is again so great. And so then a person thinks, well, but this hadith is saying that the person who eats with thankfulness is like the one who fasts with patience, i.e., like in reward. But we know that the fasting person has the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. So what about the person who's thankful, right? And so one of the things that, I try and remind myself is that the moment of fast breaking is very, very important. The moment of fast breaking is very, very important. The dua that we make in fast breaking is very, very important. And the place of the heart, or the how a person's hudur with Allah is subhanahu wa ta'ala at that moment is very, very important. Because in a sense, the fast breaking is where these two things come together. That the sa'im as-sabir becomes the ta'im as-shakir, right? That the person who is sa'im sabir breaks their fast and becomes a ta'im shakir, right? And part of the difficulty, one of the reasons, again, some have said, why is it that the ta'im as-shakir gets this immense reward, is because it's very difficult to, or oftentimes people, when they have many blessings and they are satiated, that it's hard for them to maintain their presence of heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in thankfulness. And so that's something that we should again think about, that when we are at that moment of fast breaking, that we really pause. And it doesn't have to be before, a person can break their fast. They should hurry to fast, to break the fast. They should take their date, their water. But, as they're doing that, and after they do that, they should, as they do it and after they do it, they should make that again, the sunnah dua. There are a number of them. And really turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in sincerity at that point. I just wanted to summarize with a few of these points that I mentioned. One is that fasting from certain basic human needs is a means toward another deeper type of fasting from the harm that we may inflict upon others. That fasting is a training of the mind, body, and spirit. That it is a means of improving bodily health as well as spiritual clarity. And the scholars have said that there's no riyat in fasting, or there's no showing off in fasting. But that doesn't mean that there is no that the intention or the sincerity of the intention is always pure. And because some people fast because everyone else is fasting, right? And some people just fast for the bodily health, right? But we want to make our fasts and in our hearts and in our minds that it is solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the way that we do that is that we have this hope of reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then fasting is a special kind of worship that is characterized by true sincerity, because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows if one fulfilled the fast. Other acts of worship can be done for the sake of ostentation, but fasting is not an act of worship that can be observed. But fasting is a way of connecting with the less fortunate. Muslim tradition relates that a Muslim who feeds a fasting person obtains the same reward of that person without it reducing that person's own reward in any way. And fasting demonstrates to the fasting person that he or she can get by with less, that we have an ability to do more. Fasting is a means of thankfulness and appreciating the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I wanted to say that, some people want to know, what can I do to improve in sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And fasting is one of those things. That is, i.e., fasting in addition to Ramadan. So, the 6 days of Shawwal, like, if a person is able to, then they should, right after Eid, just do 6 days, right? We're already in the mode. We can do it. It's just a matter, just think, one should, after the Eid is over, we just think, it's like the extension of Ramadan, right? We've done it for a month, we can do it for another 6 days, right? We should do that. Then there are opinions, right, that the Maliki opinion is that you can do those 6 days throughout the year, and that's true. But really, that when a person does it right after Ramadan, that they tie in that reward, right? That they it's also to rush to an act of obedience is a sign of sincerity. And then that we fast regularly outside of that every week or every month there should be some fasting, and that this will increase us in sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because fasting and nifaq, they don't go together. Fasting is that aspect that really is something that is the characteristic of the believer, and that is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounty and reward. So thank you very much. Jazakumullahu khairan. And I hope that I was able to benefit myself and my brothers and sisters. And Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer, for the beautiful reminder about the many benefits of fasting during the month of Ramadan and beyond. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you. This is the Rayyan Center Daily Khatra with our special guest today, Ayub Plamer. If you missed any part of this, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. Please go there and see it. And again, please join us tomorrow with our Daily Khatras with Hafiz Anzla. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.